Welcome to Web Handling. My name is Dave Roysum. I am super excited to continue our new mini-series on working with and learning from operators. Here, we learn what operators like and dislike and why that matters for you for waste, delay, and customer complaints on your web machines. I know your time is precious, so let's get started. There are many quite practical motivations to treating operators well. The economic motivations are because they have notable influences on waste, delay, and customer complaints, including web handling waste, web handling delay, and web handling customer complaints. Also, if you treat them poorly, they may leave, even if the pay is good. Training a new operator to be proficient as the old one was can take months or even years. Yes, years. Many modern coders, winders, printing presses, and other web machines have as many control inputs and displays as a light jet aircraft. I once worked for a small contract converter who quite regularly took their entire plant down for training, lasting from a few hours to most of a day. This included everyone, from the floor sweep to the general manager. The only ones excluded from training was the secretary and the accountant. I asked my host why they were so over the top in training. He said, "Simple economics." Since they could not pay much more than other plants nearby, they had to find other ways to retain their workforce. So, as an experiment, they tried regular training. Soon, what had been a typical 1-year stint changed so that no one had recently left the company. As a consequence, waste, delay, and customer complaints more than paid for the regular training days. So, why was this working? First, the operators felt they were a valued asset, as most clearly demonstrated by the investment in training. Thus, they stayed. Thus, they learned their job well and didn't have to try and pass on what they had learned in a brief time to the next operator as they were on their way out the door. So, the very best policy is to treat people like they are gold. At the very least, you should treat them like they're human beings. My experience is that only about half of the plants reach even that level, as I will show you in the next slide. Better yet, treat them as your equals. Yes, maybe they don't have as much school, or maybe they don't have as big of a paycheck. However, as we saw in the last clip, you may be seriously underestimating some of your operators you work with if you even subconsciously think like that. However, let me share you a trade secret from a troubleshooter who has worked in 1,000 plants and with 10,000 people. I treat at least some of the best operators as if they are my superiors. Yes, I mean that quite literally. Every operator knows something quite important about the problem at hand that I do not. Some also have the key observation or idea that will unlock the problem. Yet today, that I would have not learned or thought of, perhaps in a lifetime. I can't tell you how many times a key bit of information dropped from the mouth of an operator and made the whole troubleshooting day an absolute success. I can tell quite quickly how well you respect your lead operators. They should be in the kickoff meeting for the day, hopefully sitting at the table instead of around the table on the outside walls. It is not unusual for operators to not speak up quite yet, so I can't tell much at that time by their presence, other than at least it's possible that you respect your operators. However, as soon as we go out on the plant floor, I will be able to quickly tell. About half the time, my host, often an engineer or manager, will do all of the talking. About half the time, they will not even bother to introduce me to the operator. That puts me in a big bind. I have to, on the spot, make a quick guess as to whether the operator, the engineer, or the manager will be a better source of information or ideas. If I suspect that the operator might be a better source, I will politely ask if I could just hang out and just watch for a bit, hoping that my host will leave to catch up on some administration so that I can begin the laborious and time-consuming task of trying to gain the trust of the operator who I've not met before. This can be quite challenging because they do not know me or how I might affect their job. All they know is that there is some egghead outsider that is now in their territory. Only with patient and humble listening will I have any chance of getting much from an operator. And hopefully that can be done soon because we've only got one day to do all of the troubleshooting. One of the worst places in the 1,000 I visited was something of a cultural phenomenon. At a super high-tech plant I worked in the UK, engineers actually dressed in suit and tie, and rarely went out onto the plant floor, and even more rarely ever talked with the hourly people. There are many things that can unnecessarily aggravate the operators. The things on this list are mostly, if not entirely, avoidable. One of the easiest remedies is to get rid of needless paperwork. You know the kind, where operators were asked to read and write down settings on their machine or measurements of the product. Often it was done with some brainstorm from a QA engineer who thought the process might be more stable or yield useful information if the operator wrote this stuff down. But more often than that, no one looks at the data sheets anyway. And the operators know that, so they just put down ditto marks in the columns. There's a saying that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And this also holds true for operators, and those who will be unhappy include the customer, the general manager, and the board of directors. There are many best practices to consider. Not every item here will work in every situation, but they should at least be tried. One that almost always works is formal training about that web machine or that web process, as might be provided by the machine builder and or consultants. Logbooks are another one that can work incredibly well, but only if the operators do the entry rather than some foreman. I can recall dozens of cases of troubleshooting where the key bit of information to unlock the problem existed only in a logbook and nowhere else, even on extremely well-instrumented processes. Of course, sometimes logbooks don't work well, just like sometimes work orders don't work well. If the operators suspect that no one is considering them carefully, then they will just use the system to complain, or worse yet, not say anything at all. There are many other best practices, such as listed here and elsewhere. Most only require empathy to get started. One of my favorite is to listen to operators who complain about something and try and do something about it. Sometimes they don't complain because they've long ago given up, because it doesn't seem to do any good. No problem. Give them something simple that will help them every day. An example would be a brand new chair, not some cast-off from the engineer or manager that even Goodwill wouldn't take, that's worn out, and even when it was new, it'd be totally unsuited to a control panel. I have a whole series on web machine ergonomics that includes some basic things like how to select the best chair for an operator's panel. There are 3 starting points for a more detailed discussion of problem solving. The first is my problem solving book that is a good companion to my industrial problem solving course of the same name. The second is the must-have 750-page Web Handling Handbook written by myself, Tim Walker, and Dr. Dilwyn Jones. This is where you can turn for the sciences of web handling, which can guide you in more effective problem solving by not having to reinvent the wheel. The caution here, however, is that science is never complete, as we've seen in this clip showing the strong influence of the human element on web handling processes. Last but not least is my award-winning and trademarked Web 101 class that has been taken by about 5,000 people just like you. Here you will learn about web handling, winding, common converting operations like slitting, as well as a good sprinkling of problem-solving techniques. Thank you so very much for joining me in this mini-series on working with operators. Stay tuned for next week's show where we will talk about operator misbehavior. If you have a topic you would like to hear about, let me know in the comment section below. If you found anything interesting or useful here, please like and share and subscribe. See you next time.